I think film school is important to filmmakers, but it depends on the path you want to take with it. Like I took a path younger when I started in high school. I think to each its own. People can go on YouTube and start their own videos and learn from there and create videos that way and kind of get ideas. They can pick up a camera from Christmas and start just doing home videos at home, and then they can start there, and then if they want to go do an 18-month course, go to it.
Let's recap a little bit for the audience. Where we met each other, DuBois Business College.
Correct. Wow.
that was 2014 for me, but you graduated in 2013, right?
No, I graduated at the beginning of 2014. I think we were there for 3 months together?
Yeah, and I know I came down to visit twice while you were down there yet.
Right, yeah. I think it was I graduated in March of 2014 because I started in October 2012.
Gotcha.
So we had a couple months, not long, but, it was long enough, I guess, to grow a relationship and a friendship,
Yeah, and we worked on a film together, Everlasting Freedom, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But what was your first moment going back to your childhood, or maybe it was even middle school, high school, etc., after college or after school? When was the first moment you knew you wanted to make films?
Kind of goes back a little bit into my childhood, and then it kind of goes into more of my high school career. Looking back, I always remember, I never wanted to be in front of the camera. I always wanted to be behind it. It wasn't more of I just didn't want to be seen in the camera, I didn't feel like I had to look, I guess you could say. But I didn't want to play with cameras or not. I just didn't want to be in front of it. And moving into high school, I studied at the Indiana County Technology Center, which is a VOTEC, and I toured it in 9th grade and saw their digital media class, and I toured that, and I really kind of enjoyed what they were showing me. They kind of showed me how to create fire and different things like that, and showed me their video equipment, and I was like, this is something that I could do. This is something I feel like I can get involved in. So then I ended up touring it a little bit more, and they showed me, green screen, they showed me photography, they showed me the editing software, and that's really when I really wanted to get involved more and find out more in depth about the, editing systems and different cameras and everything like that. So I would say the biggest time would be the high school career, when I finally found out that filmmaking was something that I wanted to do in my life.
Now, was your first reaction, of course, you talked about all the editing software and when you really first got involved and you saw a lot of things, but I know that you've written a lot of things yourself. Was writing always a possibility, or was that one of those that came later on?
Writing was something that I think came later on. I've always had a creative mind, always had stories. I remember in high school, we write these stories. I actually had, even in 4th grade, I always remember because my parents saved this one story that I had about a teacher. It was a dream I had, and I wrote this story for class about this certain teacher that, ran across the school trying to kill us students. And it was something funny that I turned in class, and I got an A for it. It was just something, creative, different, something that isn't originary. So I feel like writing was always there, but just really didn't come until later on. I would say probably around my college career, just because it wasn't something, I didn't have the time to write a lot of stories in high school. Kind of came up with different ideas, but I'd rather have someone else write a script or anything for me. I can come up with ideas, but the complete writing and getting the right words for, the talent to say and different things, I don't think really came to me until college.
Is screenwriting the most you've written, or have you ever played around with the creative writings, the poems and everything else?
Screenwriting's probably the furthest I've gone. I'm not really a poem kind of guy. I'm not really a book kind of guy. Screenwriting's probably the furthest I've gone.
Is screenwriting to you easy to understand? Because I know some people, I give people that are used to reading novels, and I'll give somebody a script, and they'll be like, "What is this?" Have you ever experienced that? Is script format harder, do you think, than a novel to follow, or do you think it's easier? I know, we all have our. I think it's easier, but of course that's all that I've really. I've been in the field now for about 4 or 5 years, so I guess you just forget the beginner's mode.
Right. Right. I think screenwriting is definitely different than a book. I can't say it's harder. It kind of depends on who you are. The way I look at screenwriting compared to like a novel, in the novel, someone's reading it and is coming, is envisioning it. With a screenwriting, you're doing is the same, but you're going to have to portray that on screen. You're going to have to, show the audience the feeling and the reaction. In a novel, the person that is reading it is envisioning themselves. So, one thing, I could read the same novel that you're reading, Donnie, but I may interpret it different than you.
And I always felt like when you look at screenwriting, it's more quicker and to the point compared to like a novel. And there's details in scripts. And I know some directors that go full in detail in their scripts. But most of the time, you're just, sitting back, taking it line by line and actually getting like a whole scene on like 3-4 pages compared to about like 10-15 for a book.
Right. And and like you said, you're putting a lot of detail in there and different things, the reaction of the main cast member or someone else's reaction, because you have different, frames that you need to shoot. You have different angles, different things to portray all these feelings. So I think that's why screenwriting can be a little bit harder than writing a novel, but they're both in their different types. It kind of depends on the person reading it. It also depends on the person writing it.
Mm-hmm. Is film school worth going to, in your opinion?
Depends on what you mean in film school. Now, I'll give a little background of what I did. Like I said earlier, that I attended the Indiana County Technology Center when I was in high school. I studied there for 3 years in digital media, all through photography, editing, video software, videography. Now, when I graduated there, I had a plan. I was like, I'm moving to the big city. I'm going to Pittsburgh. I'm going to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. That's the biggest school, around here to do some videography work. That's where I want to go. I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh to tour, and they, it was a full day. Everything they had there was beautiful. Green screen rooms, 10 or 12 video editing systems. It was a state-of-art equipment, and I'm just like, I'm in love. We talked about, obviously you got to talk about the money and how much it's going to cost to come here. And, they said, this is what you're going to be learning your first semester, and I was like, I know this stuff. I learned this while I was in high school. And I was like, I don't know if I need this. I'm not sure if I want to go there. Yeah, it could be great. So then, I started looking at smaller schools and different things like that, and that is when we found out about the movie making program from John Russo movie making program at the Du Bois Business College. And, I was like, that's something, it was an 18-month course. I got an associate's in business degree. I said, let's try it out. That's not long. It was something different. It wasn't like I was learning everything like I did in high school. I kind of got to be more creative with my own work. We created commercials, short films. We did music videos, different things that I think was a little bit different and kind of your own creativeness. So I think film school is important to filmmakers, but it depends on the path you want to take with it. Like I took a path younger when I started in high school. I think to each its own. People can go on YouTube and start their own videos and learn from there and create videos that way and kind of get ideas. They can pick up a camera from Christmas and start just doing home videos at home, and then they can start there. And then if they want to go to an 18-month course, go to it. Or if they feel like they need to go to a 4-year college, go for it. I do agree that film school is important. I feel like you learn a lot more than you would just, playing around by yourself or playing with a group of friends. I think you find a lot, and I'll be honest, what I think helped me when I went to film school, it helped me a lot with networking. Mm-hmm. And you probably agree with that. That's how we met.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
You met so many people that were passionate about it, the same as you were. You would go out and make films. You would go out and make short films. You would work together. Then you would get connected with the theater in town, and find out cast members and find talent in the area. You would find other people that like to do filming as well. You'd find out so many different competitions in the area, different things like that. So film school is very important for that reason, I believe, is the networking that I had while through college and even high school.
And sorry, cut you off. I 100% agree with what you're saying. But like, I have so many people that ask me, because they're like, I get DMs on Instagram from like wannabe filmmakers that are just coming out of high school, and they're like, oh, well, I've seen a few of your productions. How do you do this? Like, did you go to film school? I was like, well, yeah, I did. I went here, but it's no longer available, which is actually one of the saddest moments of my life. Because you know what? It was really a nice college. Du Bois Business College was really a nice college.
It wasn't overwhelming. You know what I mean?
I mean, sometimes you walk on, and it had to do a lot with the area, yes. But sometimes you walk on college campuses and you're just like overwhelmed by the amount of people. I like a small class.
Right.
A lot of people don't like. A lot of people go to these bigger schools because they want to be in bigger seminars and stuff like that. Not me. The thing that I liked about our film school was it was hands-on, and you didn't really need the mathematics of the world necessarily. You didn't need any other classes other than like your curriculum classes. But what I'm trying to think, because I do, again, getting back to topic, I do get a lot of people that ask me to go, like, if they should go or not. What is a recommendation? Because I always recommend them. Yes, but you gotta be selective. And second of all, you can learn a lot on YouTube more now than you could in some of these actual like non-hands-on schools. Can you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I even mentioned in that other answer that YouTube is there. I think there was even a student in your class that left the business college because he felt like he could learn more from YouTube.
Yes, it was. Yep.
So you can, and there's a lot of stuff in YouTube, but I feel like you're missing out on the networking part, and that is the key. And that's what I felt, really helped me when I was in college, was networking, and helped me grow into, doing what I have done since college, videography and filmmaking and film competitions and different things like that. That's what I give credit to, and that's what I think people are missing out on if they don't, end up going to a film school. Meeting new people and meeting people that could actually help you grow as a filmmaker. I can't tell you, even in high school, and we can get on later on, I used to work on a TV show, Return to Amish, and the reason why I got the gig was a girl I went to high school with, couldn't be on the show. She couldn't work on the show the one day. She knew I was around the area. She knew I've, been working in film. She gave them my number. They called me. I worked on the show for 3 years. So I really encourage people to look at going to film schools. It's worth the money. You get, like you said earlier, it's hands-on. If you go to an 18-month college that's a smaller classroom, it helps because the teacher knows your name. You have a relationship with the teacher after school, even, different things like that. You go to a 4-year college, you may not have that relationship with them. So it's really hard to say. It's everybody's own opinion, but to me, the networking was the key to helping me in my career with filming.
Now I'm going to bring up a title, Everlasting Freedom.
Oh boy.
For the viewers that don't know Everlasting Freedom, can you give us a short bio of what that movie was about?
So, Everlasting Freedom was a faith-based film about a death row inmate changing his faith before he was executed. So, that's pretty much a quick little bio about it. A little bit more details was a film that me and you wrote together.
We had you know what, I still remember when we first came up with the concept, and you know what, it really was a great concept. There are great parts in that movie with a lot of the I forget the man's name. Oh, the actor's name. Russell.
Oh,
that
was his character name.
I really loved who you casted in that role, and I loved
Melanie. Melanie was her her name. Sarah was her character name.
But I loved the two you casted for that. I really thought that made the film. I really did.
Oh yeah. Dan Blust was the character. Russell was the death row inmate, and I just remember the day he came in to, into the casting call, and it was just like kind of out of shock. We were, this was our first feature film, and I was like, I don't know who's going to be casted for. I had a couple people in mind that I knew from the Du Bois area, and I said, hey, come on out to this, and they came and we talked, and it just was like not feeling. And then I walked out of the room of the casting call, and I saw Dan standing there, and a guy I never met, and he's all tattooed up, just looked rough and as could be. And I'm like, who are you? And we ended up talking. He's like, someone shared it with me on Facebook, and I'm like, oh wow. He showed up. We talked. He was a perfect fit for it. He was a pastor. He was someone that had trouble in his life prior that, changed his faith himself and became a pastor and was tattooed from probably toe to head. He had tattoos in places I didn't know you could tattoo, and he, like you said, he was a perfect fit for it. Melanie, was casted for the role of Sarah, which was the security guard that helped Russell change his faith while he was in prison. Now, Sarah, Melanie, I mean, she was a person that has done theater, and she was, in the theater business for a while, and that's how I knew her. And, I think she was the one I mentioned to show up to the casting call, and, we had a couple other women show up for the role, and it was, they didn't really have a whole lot of acting, I guess, acting experience. And Melanie did. And, it was the hardest part that I saw with directing Melanie was it's really hard. And I guarantee you a lot of filmmakers have seen this. If you've casted any theater, theater stage actors, it's hard to get them to act on camera. They have, it's two different things. When you're working in theater, you have to express yourself a little bit more so the whole audience can hear you and different things like that. And it's in film, it's more like we got to tone it down a little bit, different things like that.
I always tell my theater actors, because Scott Winter, who I've worked with before, he was out. He's the now pastor of our old church. So congrats to him. And he was a youth pastor when he was actually filming like the 3 films he filmed with me on Shield of Hope. But he was always a theater actor out in Pittsburgh. And so the first film, you can kind of tell it was more in like the dialogue and how he delivered lines, but like the emotion wasn't on their face. So what I always tell my theater actors is, I'm like, listen, you can deliver great dialogue lines from the stage, because remember, nobody's really looking at your face on stage from like that far away. I was like,
right.
When you're filming in movies and TV shows, we're going to work on the facial, because like a lot more, and I am a true believer in this, a lot more of how somebody reacts to something on camera will be better than how they deliver lines. That's just honestly my opinion. But
you're right. And the fun part with it, which they loved, was you screw up, we can redo it.
Yes.
And that was their favorite part. They're like, oh my God, I screwed up. And it's like, let's rerun it. Let's go. They're like, oh my God, I forgot I can do that. They're so used to stage where they have one shot and one shot only. But this time, we can cut and we can re-roll. So, but those two were perfect fits. They worked well together too. And, two strangers, I think they still have a friendship to this day. I don't know, but they worked perfectly together. We had a lot of good cast in that film. Some were, thrown in just because we needed extra bodies. But a lot of people were willing to help. It was a very low budget film. I can't even tell you the price of it, but it was a lot of, for it being a faith-based film, we saw a lot of people volunteering and helping out and wanting to get the word out. So it was something that I'm proud of to be a part of. I think you are as well, and it was something that we got to do together, and we can, definitely think it was definitely worth it.
And I remember it was you, me, and Dave Clark in the casting, because I think I was only at one casting call, and I know it was the one with Melanie. I think we looked at each other after Melanie auditioned, and we're like, we found our character.
Yeah, I remember you even saying that. You looked right at me and said that. I wish you would have been at the one with Dan, because that was just perfect. When I walked out of the room and he was standing there, like I said earlier, he was standing there, and it was just like, who are you? And thank you for coming, almost.
Also the hour before we went to the casting call, because remember I believe I went to your house first, or did I meet you at the theater? No, I
I
wouldn't.
don't remember.
Either way, but you remember you were telling me about an hour before when we were headed to the theater. You're like, oh, somebody got shot on this street. Do you remember that?
I kind of do, yeah.
So that was a great start to our evening. People always ask me about locations, because in Memory of Lies, I've of course used a few universities that look like hospitals, and I've used it for hospital scenes. How did you end up getting the old rundown prison in Everlasting Freedom?
Yeah, so we used, in Clearfield County, they have an old prison, which was owned by I want to say a logging company for their offices. And now this prison is known to be haunted. And we talked to the logging company. We had some, people that knew the one manager that worked there for the logging company, and we went and talked to them, and they agreed to letting us into the prison, because the prison was never really being used. It was more just the offices there. And so they allowed us to use the prison, and it was a very old prison. And it was like, even I think me and you talked about it, and even some of our other crew members talked, how are we going to do this in the script? How is it going to look? We're filming something in 2014, 15. How are we going to make it, realistic of a prison, and even in the script we talked about, we had Alex Spelser, which was a news anchor, a real live news anchor that worked for WTAJ. And we had him cast where he had a news alert saying, prisons are overran with, inmates. We are transferring some inmates into the old Clearfield County prison. So kind of made it more realistic why we were using an old prison. These doors were very, I don't even know, hard to move, hard to shut, cobwebs everywhere, bats everywhere. So it was very different to use something like that. But, and I go back to the haunted part, and it was haunted. Different things.
I was going to ask you if you had any of those experiences in there. As soon as you said haunted, I was like, oh, I got to ask him.
Yeah, we felt different vibes, different things, scary things. They had they even had an old guard watch tower that we ended up one night. We were like, let's go up, and it was just creepy, hearing different noises. And some of even the stories that some of them, like the people were telling us that work there, like she heard a piano playing one time upstairs, and they don't have a piano. And she's like, I don't know if it was coming from a computer or what, but it was like, yeah, it was creepy. And reading some of the things that were carved into the walls in the prison, like into the cells, the things that were carved in there were very vulgar, creepy, different pictures of different things that were just it just creeped you out. But, we put that to the side, saying this is a perfect place for us to film this. We were able to put that all aside, but it was, you just had that feeling. They had, they even had a solitary basement. They had different things in the basement, and you could just, the one time we were down there, we had two flashlights. Both flashlights went off at the same time. Literally, don't know if the batteries died, at the same time. We were down in solitary, and the flashlights went off.
I would have freaked out.
We were a little creeped out about that.
Looking back at Everlasting Freedom, what's something you wish you would have did differently, whether it was through finances, whether it was through, you can even say casting, or whether it was through like your own personal, as a director, where have you grown since then on different projects?
I definitely think this is a tough question, because there was a couple things I'd like to improve. Obviously, financing. I think, this was a film that we did. It ended up being like an hour-long film total. I think me and you did a great job on the script. And I think a lot of it was the financing would have been nice, because a lot of times when you get people like working as a volunteer or working for pretty much no pay or little at all, they kind of get run down after so many times, and after a couple weeks, they're like, okay, this is none of my time. I'm taking my time and I'm not getting paid. So I feel like finances would have been better. We did, Indiegogo. We tried to get funding through different things and through different, corporations and organizations in the area. We, with it being a faith-based film, we got a lot of donations from churches in the different areas that, we visited or talked to. So that helped a lot, but I think the finances would have been, something I would have tried a little bit more, maybe. I think we rushed into it a lot, and if we would have taken more time and visited more churches and more supporters and different things like that, we could have gotten, more finances where we could have paid the cast a little bit more, could have gotten a little bit maybe better equipment, because I think we were just using some GH3s, maybe a Panasonic DVX200 while we were filming. So we were using some, good cameras, but I just feel like, and some of it could have been a little bit better, better quality, better, I think some of the editing slacked a little bit. That was, I think we rushed into the editing, trying to get it out on time. So a couple of small things we could have done a little bit better. I think timing was just the thing. I think we were trying to get it out as quickly as possible. You get so excited, you write a script, you film it, you edit it, you're like, you want to get it out as soon as possible. I think that was, we rushed into it a lot. I think we wrote a script, me and you, in June or July or May or something, and we got it done in a year. Mm-hmm. It took us like a year after filming it and editing it all.
Yeah, that sounds about right, because it was 2015 it was out.
Right, and I think we started in 2014, right after you graduated.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that makes me seem old, just thinking about that.
I'm older than you.
Yeah, but you look young. I look like I'm aging. But no, I mean, that was a great, and for the opening premiere, we had a very good crowd.
Oh yeah, we did. We had a lot of people. We did it at a church. The opening premiere was at one of the churches that helped us. And talking about it, I'm starting to remember a lot of stuff that we did. That church helped us because we were able to film there a couple different times for different things. We actually filmed something at the church before we even started filming for the movie. I don't know if you remember this. We filmed a roundtable event. Do you remember that at all?
I remember rumors of it, but I don't remember that because I know I wasn't there at that point in time. Right, so that was, I'm trying to think, was that an actors roundtable? Or was that?
Yeah, well, it was a roundtable of our actors. A lot of the actors were people like Dan, the guy that played Russell. He was someone that had, he had his faith changed after a while from having, some trouble in a lot. And a lot of the actors that we had were friends of Dan's. And they went through, abuse or, drugs or just different things like that, and how they changed their faith. So we had a roundtable event, and we actually had a guy that played one of the prison guards. He was actually, I want to say he was a psychiatrist, and he kind of led that roundtable talking about their, the people's lives and how, what they went through with different things and how faith changed it. And it kind of gave a good, we actually, we did a meet and greet event at the mall, and we kind of played that video there, and we kind of, I don't know if we really released that online or anything, but when we did the meet and greet, a lot of people came up and watched it. It kind of brought tears to some people's eyes of some of the stuff that happened to these people. And it kind of was a good lead into how Everlasting Freedom was going to help, teach people how faith can, really help people's lives.
Oh, and I think it did a great job. It did a great job of it. And I think, I remember when we were pitching to some churches, we're like, well, we know this isn't going to be where we want to be in the end, but we wanted to be like the Kendrick brothers.
Right.
And we talked about Fireproof, and we talked about Flywheel and Facing the Giants that were at the time. And I believe that was the year that, the one with the cop. Courageous came out, I do believe. I'll have to fact check that real quick, but I believe that was the year Courageous came out. So we were kind of pitching it like, oh, it's like a cop, type thing, because, we had the same kind of similar qualities other than the fact that death row and, everything else. But
right.
So what movies, because we just talked about the Kendrick brothers a little bit. What movies, and they don't have to be Christian films necessarily, but what movies inspired you or inspire? Like, is there any currently past, what films are out there that you A, recommend, and B, affected your life?
So definitely like what you were talking, the Kendrick brothers were a big reason why, we wanted to do Everlasting Freedom. We wanted to get that started around here. When I was younger, you always think of the big movies around that time. I think Harry Potter was a big one when I was growing up. One that really inspires me now, I'm only saying this because I actually got to work on the movie Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams. It's a boxing movie that was shot here in Pittsburgh and Indiana area. In Pennsylvania, and I really got to work on it as like a production assistant. I actually got to be an extra in it as well. You can't really see me, but in the arena. But I kind of got to work on it. Got to work with some cool people. Like I said, Jake Gyllenhaal and Rachel McAdams. That's something that really inspired me, only because I got to see. That was the first movie I got to see as a Hollywood set. I got to meet, some big name people, which was very cool, and it still inspires me to this day. It makes me, really, and when I talk to people that are filmmakers, I tell them, hey, I worked on a Hollywood set, and they're always like, oh, I would love to work on a Hollywood set, and it's like, if you can get a chance to do it once, do it once. If you're planning on staying around here and working on films here, you can still do it. Your film in, Du Bois, Pennsylvania, or Berwick, Pennsylvania does not need to be a Hollywood set. It needs to have, ambition and creativeness. Those are two big things that, are going to create a film.
So because I actually completely forgot to add Southpaw to this list because I would ask you, and I'll ask you about it right now. Any Jake Gyllenhaal stories? Did you have any actually interaction with him on set? Or they say he's a great guy.
He is. He talked to us a lot. And he talked to the fans a lot. He kind of just said, hey, what's up? Different things like that. I had a very good interaction with Rachel McAdams. I don't want my wife to hear me, but, she already knows the story. We were like maybe 5 or 10 feet away. She looked up from her phone. She looked right at me, stared at, each other in the eyes for about 5 seconds. And I felt like it was love at first sight. And then, I got called on Milwaukee for something. And the rest was history, I guess. But, working with some people on the set, it was very fun. 50 Cent was there. He got to sit in the crowd with a lot of people. It was, a lot of people had fun with it. And George Whitaker was someone that was also there. He talked to a lot of us. A lot of people hung out with us even, as PAs and extras out in the lobby. In some of the places, they would come out, kind of shake your hand, high five you, different things like that. So they were very good to work with.
If I would have made the eye contact too, I would have been like, yes. And you probably wouldn't have had to work for the rest of your life either.
No, probably not. Yeah. But so, you don't want to go up closer or tackle or anything, and then you get kicked off set and everything. But
I completely understand. That's why they're getting paid to be there, and you're paid to be there, obviously, but that's why they're making the millions.
Exactly. But no, it was fun. It was fun to see different things on a Hollywood set that's different. The things that Jake did to get ready for a boxing movie. And the things that, the directors would do, and watching Anton Fugo, he was the director, different things he would talk to about, talking to Jake and watching him direct Jake or watching him direct Rachel or George Whitaker. He, the way he did it and the way he talked to them, was very interesting, and then watching, they had second directors and, assistant directors, third directors, different things like that took care of the extras. And those kind of people, you don't, when you're watching a movie, you don't even think about them. But those are the heart of the film, Hollywood films as well, because they have to take care of thousands of extras, or they have to do this and different things like that. So it was very, very fun. It was something I'll never forget in my life that I was a part of. And like I said earlier, it was because of, I'm going to go back to networking. That's how I got that job, was networking. With some people that I saw that they were doing a casting call. I knew a couple people that, were a part of it. I emailed the person that was in charge of like the PAs and different things like that, found out she knew someone I worked with prior. And that's how I ended up getting the job. And the funny part was when I started working on Southpaw, I saw the girl that got me the job for Return to Amish. She worked as a PA as well, so we got to work together, and that's when she, knew I worked in films and different things like that, and that she gave me the job for Return to Amish. And I made connections with a lot of different PAs that worked outside of New York, Texas, different things like that. So people would contact me, or I'd be up to date on different things that were going on, and if I wanted to, apply for a PA job, or even, just to be an extra, I knew a lot of people, and I could try.
Your high school is putting out a lot of filmmakers, apparently.
And that's what I'm saying. Going back to the schooling, filmmaking schools are great. If you can take advantage of if anybody listening has a VOTech or a technical school around them, and you take advantage of that. That's what you want to do as being a filmmaker. Take advantage of what you have in front of you, because it helped. I know a lot of the people I went to school with at Tech are, the VOTech. Like I said, the one girl did a lot of filmmaking. The one was a photographer, and she became a great photographer, ran her own photography business, and now she's a teacher back in that digital media program. So she teaches and has a successful photography business. There's many people that have went on and done some filming stuff, created their own filming businesses. So if you have a technical school around you, I take advantage of it. That's going back to the school stuff. I think that if you can get early education with that, it'll help you in the long run. That way you can get out quicker and start working on some stuff.
Now, I know you just started a family, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there any new projects in the work from you, or would you like to return to certain, even like a return to Amish or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I know we talked a little bit earlier. Return to Amish, I worked on it for 3 years, and unfortunately they kind of stopped that back in last time I worked on it was August of 2018. So working on some TV shows if they're available is a lot of time consuming in those kind of things, depending on where they're filming. Sometimes they film for a week and then they're done for a month. Sometimes they film for 2 weeks and then they're done for 2 months. It's very, not time manageable, and it's very hard to do that kind of stuff. I was a waiter at that time, so I really had the time to do that. I was able to get off work to go do that, and I was making more money than I was waiting tables. So it was very worth it then. So would I love to work on a TV show? Yes. Do I have the time? It's hard to say depending on the thing. I've kept in the loop on different things that are going on in Pittsburgh. I know they're looking for, I think they were just recently filming some shows in Pittsburgh that I saw. Probably not now with everything that's going on in the world. I've seen that they filmed like Mindhunters, the Netflix series, The Mindhunters. They filmed that in Pittsburgh. They filmed the movie Concussion with Will Smith. Those were things I've kept in the loop on, and kind of got an idea if the time worked out, maybe that's something I could go work on. Now, I did work on it. I started my own videography, photography business. Was working with some other people with it. I did end up stopping that back here in August of 2019. I was working on that for about 3 years as well. And then I kind of stopped that because I was becoming a family man. I had a baby boy in November, and just kind of wanted to step away from that kind of stuff. So right now what I'm doing is freelance videography. I'm doing a lot of weddings. Mainly, I know a lot of people that that knew that I did weddings, so they're kind of contacting me here if I can do them. I'm only doing, not many, maybe 4 or 5 a year if I choose to. It all depends on the timing for me. So I've kind of slowed down a little bit, kind of wanted to take time to be a family man. And, I do have another full-time job. I work in sales at a newspaper. I'm a full-time advertising executive, so a lot's going on. Just kind of seeing how things go, and I'd love. One thing that we didn't really talk to about much was the 48-hour film projects that they do, and I love doing those. So if they continue those, and if people are, if the time permits, and that's something I choose to do, maybe in a year or two or something, I would love to get back into those, because if anybody's done a 48-hour film project, you know how exhausting they can be, but you know how much you can learn from them.
Best memory from a 48-hour film competition.
So, there's many. There's many memories. The 48-hour film projects are fun, and if no one knows what a 48-hour film project is, it's where, you have literally 48 hours to create a 4 to 7 minute short film. You write the script and everything. You have to use a line of dialogue, a prop, and a character in your film they give you. You have from Friday night to Sunday night to turn the film in. That's writing, filming, and editing everything. Something, when we were back, were you a part of that one or not, Donnie, or was that right after the one that Shayna was a part of, and we won Best Film Runner-Up and Best Cinematography? I don't know if you were a part of that one or not.
The one you did with Haggerty? I was not.
Yeah, you were not, okay.
No, was it Heels on Wheels or something like that?
Yes, Heels on Wheels.
Okay. No, I was not a part of that one. I was on the... we did two. I was on the Coco Cops one, and then I came down. Was it last year or the year before? For the
I think it was the year before.
With that UFO ending, which wasn't supposed to be UFO ending.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing with 48-hour film projects. You can come up with great ideas, but sometimes they're just not. They don't look,
We can also come up with some very bad ideas as well.
Yes, you have some bad ideas because your lack of sleep and you're trying to rush on things. Different things happen. Editing slows down because you really don't get sleep. I think in the matter of each year on average, I got 6 hours of sleep the whole weekend. So, but those things are so much fun to do. I recommend to anybody that's wanting to start to get into film or has been in film a little bit, try a 48-hour film project if they're close to you. Get a part of a team. Just be like, an assistant or something. You don't have to go crazy and be a director or a writer. Just find out what it's about and do it. So going back to some of the bad memories or memories I've had, I remember the one time we were using a hotel, not last year, but this 2 years ago, the one that you came up for. We were staying at a hotel that night. And I think I want to say it was Friday night into Saturday. We just got to bed at 3:00, and we wrote the script. We got the script done. We're ready. We're waking up at like 6:00 to get showered and everything and go get ready to film. A fire alarm went off at like 4:00 in the morning.
Yep.
At the hotel. And I will never forget that. And it was like we just got to bed, and 3:00, and so fire alarm goes off at 4. We have to run out of the hotel. We're out there for a half hour, 45 minutes, and we didn't get back to bed till literally 5:30, and we were up at 6:30 to get ready. So that was one of the memories. But literally, 48-hour film projects are something I love because we've won some awards. Being a part of the one with Mr. Haggerty and Shayna Steiner, we won the Best Film Runner-Up out of 48 other films. We won Best Cinematography with that. Those are, definitely, find out some information on 48-hour film projects and see how you can help. Those are definitely learning experiences for anybody that's interested in getting into film.
So, to wrap this up, if you're going to talk to somebody that is a future filmmaker, I know we've talked a lot about film school and what we would give advice for, but if somebody's listening to this segment right now as a future filmmaker and they want to get into film, what is the best advice you can give them?
There's a lot. I could go on hours with advice and literally talking to people about how you can do this. Networking, like I said earlier, is one of the biggest things that's helped me out in the film world. Don't be afraid to talk to people about your passion. Don't be afraid to, talk to anybody. Reach out to people on Facebook. Don't be scared. I work in sales, and that's one big thing I've learned even in sales is, I'm working, trying to sell advertising. Reach out to a business. That's what I've done. But, if you're a filmmaker, don't be afraid to reach out to someone that that does film or does videography or does photography. Don't be afraid to be creative with, if you're writing a script, don't be afraid to be creative. Write it down and reach out to someone like you or myself and have them look at the script. Maybe that'll, bounce ideas off each other. And then don't be afraid of, contacting some of your friends and getting something together. you got to take the effort, and if you want to get a film done, you got to take the effort to get it done. You got to be the one that's ambitious about it, and be able to talk to anybody about the passion that you have. So my best advice is don't give up. Talk to anybody you can about it, and network as best as you can.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, and we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Donnie.